The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across Maple Ridge, a quiet suburban neighborhood of wide lawns, quiet streets, and houses that grew larger the farther you walked from the main road. At the far end of the cul-de-sac sat a white brick colonial with black shutters and a freshly painted fence. That house belonged to Victoria Langford. Victoria was 62, widowed, and precise in every habit. Her late husband had built a successful logistics company, and the fortune he left her allowed her to live exactly as she preferred: orderly, private, and undisturbed. She kept her hedges trimmed to exact heights, her driveway free of leaves, and her opinions carefully unspoken, until they were not. 2 houses down, on a corner lot that had once been empty, stood a newer 2-story home with a wide front porch and a backyard that opened toward a line of oak trees. That house belonged to Marcus and Elena Hale and their 3 children. Marcus was the police chief of Riverview County. Elena taught middle school science. Their sons, Jordan and Caleb, were 14 and 11. Their daughter, Maya, was 8. They had moved in 14 months earlier after Marcus accepted the chief's position. The neighborhood had been polite. Some neighbors waved. Few brought baked goods. Victoria Langford had not. On a clear Saturday in early June, the Hales decided to host a small backyard gathering. Nothing elaborate. Family, a few close friends from the department and the school, paper plates, and the smell of charcoal. Marcus had promised the kids they could invite 2 friends each. Elena had spent the morning cutting fruit and seasoning chicken. By 3 o'clock the grill was lit, music played at a moderate volume from a Bluetooth speaker, and the backyard filled with the easy noise of people who knew one another well. Victoria Langford sat at her kitchen window with a cup of tea she had already allowed to go cold. She watched the cars arrive. She counted the guests. She noted the folding tables, the coolers, the children running with water guns. She did not know the names of the people in the backyard. She only knew that the volume of laughter had risen, and that the smoke from the grill was drifting toward her perfectly kept roses. At 4:17 p.m. she picked up her phone and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered on the second ring. 911, what is your emergency? Victoria kept her voice even. I'm calling about a gathering next door. There's a large group of people in a backyard on Maple Court. Looks like some kind of party. The music is loud, there's smoke, and I'm concerned about the number of vehicles parked along the street. It doesn't feel safe. The dispatcher asked for the address. Victoria gave it. She added that she had lived in the neighborhood for 23 years and had never seen anything like this. She did not say the word black. She did not need to. The description of the cars, the music, and the large group carried the implication for her. The call was logged as a noise complaint with possible overcrowding. 2 patrol units were dispatched. Marcus Hale was standing at the grill when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, saw the internal department notification, and frowned. A 911 call had come in from an address 2 houses away. He wiped his hands on a towel, stepped away from the smoke, and walked toward the side gate. Elena noticed the change in his posture and followed. Everything okay? She asked. Marcus kept his voice low. Someone called about a party on the street. Our street. Elena looked past him toward Victoria's house. The kitchen curtains were half open. You think it's her? I don't know yet. The first patrol car arrived at 4:31. Officer Denise Torres parked at the curb and stepped out with her partner, Officer Rain Gwynn. Both were in uniform. Both knew Chief Hale by sight and by reputation. When they saw him standing near the gate in a polo shirt and shorts, tongs still in one hand, their expressions shifted from professional readiness to quiet surprise. Marcus raised a hand in a calm greeting. Afternoon. I think this call is about us. Officer Torres checked her notes. We received a report of a large gathering, loud music, and possible safety concerns at this address. Marcus nodded once. That's accurate as far as the gathering goes. Music's on, grills going, about 20 people. Mostly family and a few friends. No alcohol for the kids, no fighting, no trespassing. You're welcome to walk through and see for yourselves. Officer Nguyen glanced toward the backyard. Children were laughing. A man in a baseball cap was flipping burgers. Elena stood near a table of lemonade and paper cups. Nothing looked disorderly. Victoria Langford watched from her window. She had expected flashing lights and raised voices. Instead, she saw the two officers speaking calmly with the man in the polo shirt. She could not hear the conversation, but she saw the officers relax their shoulders. One of them even smiled. Marcus invited the officers into the backyard. They declined to stay for food, but they accepted a bottle of water each. Officer Torres took a quick walk around the perimeter, noted the parked cars were not blocking hydrants or driveways, and confirmed the music volume was within residential limits for a Saturday afternoon. Officer Nguyen spoke briefly with Elena and then with one of the guests, a lieutenant from the same department. After 12 minutes, the officers returned to their car. Officer Torres radioed dispatch that the call had been resolved as a permitted private gathering with no violations. She added carefully that the homeowner was Chief Marcus Hale. The information traveled quickly through the shift supervisor and then to the watch commander. No further units were sent. Victoria Langford remained at her window. She watched the officers drive away. She watched the backyard return to its earlier rhythm. She felt a tight, unfamiliar heat in her chest. Not fear, but the first edge of something she did not want to name. Marcus did not go to her door that afternoon. He finished grilling. He sat with his children and their friends. He listened to a story about a science fair project and another about a soccer tryout. Only after the last guest left and the yard was quiet did he walk the short distance to Victoria's front porch. He rang the bell once. Victoria opened the door but did not step outside. She held the frame with one hand. "Mrs. Langford," Marcus said. His voice was steady, neither angry nor overly soft. "I'm Marcus Hale. I live 2 houses down. I believe you called about our gathering this afternoon." She did not deny it. "I was concerned about the noise and the number of people." "I understand concern," he said. "I deal with it every day. What I need you to understand is that the people in my backyard were my family and friends. My children were playing. My wife was serving food. There was no threat. There was no crime." Victoria's jaw tightened. "I have a right to call if I feel unsafe." "You do," Marcus agreed. And the officers responded the way they're trained to respond. "A check. They found nothing wrong. That's how the system is supposed to work. What concerns me is why a backyard meal on a Saturday afternoon felt unsafe to you." She looked past him toward the street. "This neighborhood has always been quiet." "It still is," he said. "Quiet doesn't mean empty. And different doesn't mean dangerous." Victoria closed the door without another word. Marcus walked home. Elena met him on the porch. She did not ask what had been said. She simply handed him a glass of iced tea and sat beside him while the sky turned the soft color of evening. The following week the story moved through the department in quiet conversations. No one leaked it to the local paper. No one posted it online. Marcus made it clear he did not want a public spectacle. He wanted the matter handled as a private misunderstanding that had been corrected by procedure. Victoria Langford, however, found the silence harder to keep. She lived alone. The days felt longer. She began to notice the Hale children riding bikes past her house. She noticed Elena watering the front beds. She noticed Marcus leaving for work in uniform at odd hours and returning long after dark. None of these observations softened her first impression, but they made the impression harder to defend. 2 weeks after the call, a strong wind knocked a heavy branch onto Victoria's driveway. It blocked her car. She stood in the early morning light staring at the obstacle, unsure how to move it without help. Marcus saw her from his kitchen window. He walked over without being asked, assessed the branch, and returned with a handsaw and a pair of work gloves. He cut the wood into manageable pieces and stacked them neatly against her fence. Victoria stood on the porch and watched. When he finished, she said a brief thank you. He nodded and went home. That afternoon she wrote a short note and left it in the Hales' mailbox. It read, "I was wrong to assume the worst. I am sorry for the trouble I caused your family. Marcus read the note at the kitchen table. Elena read it over his shoulder. They did not discuss it at length. They simply placed it in a drawer and continued with the ordinary business of their week. Summer moved forward. The Hales hosted 2 more small gatherings, one for Jordan's birthday, one for a department potluck that spilled into the backyard because the weather was good. Victoria did not call again. She kept her windows closed and her opinions quieter. On the second gathering, she left a tray of store-bought cookies on the Hales' front step with another short note. For the children. Marcus carried the tray inside. The children ate the cookies. Elena washed the plate and returned it the next morning with a small container of leftover potato salad. Victoria accepted it without conversation. In September, the county held its annual community safety fair at the park 3 blocks from Maple Court. Marcus spoke for 10 minutes about emergency preparedness and the importance of knowing one's neighbors. He did not mention the June call. Victoria attended. She stood at the back of the crowd, arms folded, listening. When the formal remarks ended, she approached the information table where Elena was handing out refrigerator magnets with the non-emergency number. I didn't know he was the chief, Victoria said quietly. Elena met her eyes. Most people don't until they need him. Victoria nodded once and walked away. By the following spring, the neighborhood had settled into a new, quieter rhythm. Children still rode bikes. Grills still smoked on weekends. Victoria still trimmed her hedges to exact heights. But when she heard laughter from the corner lot, she no longer reached for the phone. She had learned, in the slow and private way that change sometimes arrives, that a backyard full of people she did not yet know was not automatically a threat. It was simply a backyard full of people. Marcus never made a speech about it. He never sought an apology beyond the note that had already been written. He continued to do the work he had always done, answering calls, managing a department, coming home to a family that cooked together and argued over board games and left the porch light on for whoever returned last. One evening in late May, almost a year after the 911 call, Victoria Langford sat on her own back patio with a glass of wine and watched the light fade over the oaks. She could hear distant music, soft, not loud, and the occasional burst of children's voices. She did not feel the old tightening in her chest. She felt only the ordinary quiet of a neighborhood settling in for the night. She finished her wine, carried the glass inside, and locked the door. Across the short stretch of lawn and fence, the Hales turned off their outdoor lights one by one. Marcus checked the side gate as he always did. Elena called the children inside. The street returned to stillness. No one called 911 that night. No one needed to. The story of that Saturday in June remained a private memory shared by a few people who had been present and a few officers who had responded. It never became a viral clip or a public campaign. It simply became one more quiet lesson in a place where lessons arrived slowly, carried on the ordinary wind that moved between houses, and settled eventually into the ground. Years later, when Maya Hale was old enough to ask her father about the day the police came to their backyard party, Marcus told her the truth without embellishment. Someone had been worried. The officers had come. They had looked around and left. The worry had been unnecessary. The people in the yard had been family. That was all. Maya accepted the answer the way children sometimes do, without needing every detail, and went back to whatever game she had been playing. Marcus watched her for a moment, then returned to the grill. The charcoal glowed. The evening air carried the familiar scent of smoke and cut grass. Somewhere down the street a porch light came on. The neighborhood continued, ordinary and imperfect and still learning how to live beside itself. And that was the end of it.